Pacing in any form of media is very hard to get perfectly right. It is pretty much impossible to make a TV show or a movie without having one boring moment, and while this problem can't entirely be solved, and I'll explain why I don't think it should much later into the video, it can at least be done very well. Pacing in a TV show is very different from, say, a movie. A movie is, of course, shorter than a TV show, so usually pacing is looked at a micro scale. But TV shows are much longer and can show much more, so people usually look at TV shows at a macro scale in terms of its pacing. But what even is pacing? Well, pacing pertains to many forms of media such as movies, TV shows, books, plays, and even in the video you're watching right now. If this video turns out to be too boring and uninteresting, which it won't, I promise, the logical thing would be to click off and watch another video. If this video is too fast, and I tell little to no information about what I'm talking about, you might be inclined to click off simply because it's too fast paced. That's what pacing is, and it's what many forms of media have to hold in utmost importance to truly find the balance between both slow and fast pacing, and when it's the right time to use them.
The Good. Clone Wars, created by Genndy Tartakovsky. The animation legend, Genndy has created some of our favorite shows to ever exist, like Samurai Jack, Dexter's Laboratory, and Primal. Just being brought into the world by someone known for the patience and care they put into their projects already gave me a good feeling about the series, and I'm really glad to say I was not at all disappointed. Consisting of 3 seasons, the show has a definitive beginning, middle, and end, with storylines that take time to breathe and see themselves through in a way that pays off to the story, as well as to the viewers. The series focused on, you guessed it, the Clone Wars and the battles that made up the war. It was even the first introduction of General Grievous, everybody's favorite, vaguely ill cyborg swordsman. It shows us the events after the attack of the clones and the gradual decline of the Republic. We get to see Obi-Wan prove himself as a capable general and a warrior with notable martial prowess. He builds the skill and experience necessary to be an effective leader. It was far from an overnight process. It wasn't like a single battle happened that caused the Republic to fall. It was a vicious power struggle between skilled warriors and a tyrannical force hell-bent on ending the Jedi Order. And personally, I love to see the stereotypical villain that pets a hairless cat or touches the hero in a pit and molten lava, all while wearing a 3-piece suit encrusted with diamonds. Who doesn't? We really get to see that in General Grievous, who's just evil for the sake of being evil. It's so cool. It was really fun to see that evolve throughout the series. The Clone Wars is a show I highly recommend you watch for yourself. I really enjoyed the pacing of the show, and I feel it sets the standard for how a story should play out. It was really good.
Now that we've seen the good of pacing, what is the bad? Well, let's look at The Mandalorian Season 3. The Mandalorian is a Star Wars show that follows Din Djarin, a Mandalorian that carries a little alien named Grogu, also known as Baby Yoda, with him. Now, spoilers for Mandalorian Season 2. If you haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend watching it. Grogu is taken safely away from Din Djarin. So you would expect that Din Djarin's story is over, now that the entire point of the show is now over, right? Well, Season 3 made things a bit confusing. At the start of Season 3, Grogu is just randomly found and reunites with Din Djarin. So literally everything is back to normal, which hurts the pacing immensely. The first few episodes feel more like a cartoon than a semi-serious Star Wars show. Things are just happening, and while yes, stuff that happens in these episodes are cool, it's just way too fast. At the start of a new season of a show, you would kind of expect it to slow down and introduce key elements of the story, right? Well, The Mandalorian Season 3 forgets to do that part, and picks up the actual story later on. In each of these episodes, they never take a step back and focus on the story. Events just occur, and they have to deal with it, which makes the pacing in these first few episodes feel imbalanced, leaning more into being fast-paced. Nothing important is happening, there's no central point to what they're doing, and it can definitely turn people off from the show. While pacing itself is a problem, the plot of the show can also contribute to the horrible pacing, and it hurt The Mandalorian Season 3. I think Andor is a perfect example of mixed pacing, where a part of the season of a show has particularly bad pacing. In Andor, another Star Wars show, we follow Cassian Andor as he starts to understand what the rebellion is all about. In the first episode, one of the best intros to any show plays out. Cassian arrives in a city on the planet Ferrix in search of his sister. 2 Imperial guards get suspicious about Cassian and try to arrest him, but not before Cassian kills one of the guards accidentally. With only one witness left, the other officer, Cassian takes one of the blaster pistols from the guards and shoots the other one. This is a near perfect intro. Instead of explaining everything about the world and the characters, We see the events that start a chain reaction in the plot and kicks off the pacing at a good start. But while it may look like the pacing will be fine for the next couple episodes, it unfortunately isn't, but it isn't horrible. The next few episodes, we see Cassian laying low in the town he grew up in Ferrix. While other things are also playing out other than Cassian's story, for the first 3 episodes it just kind of feels boring, and that's mostly because of Andor's strange way of formatting the plot. Firstly, yes, it is okay to have a slow story at the start of a show, to introduce characters, explain the world, and among other things. But when it takes almost 3 episodes to do that, especially for Andor only being a 1-season show at the time of this video, something is inherently wrong with the pacing. There are 3 arcs in Andor, arcs being different points in the story that follow the same plotline: the intro arc, the heist arc, and the prison arc. Basically, the way that Andor formats its plot is largely based on build-up and payoff for these arcs. So for these first 3 episodes, the pacing is slow because it's all build-up. This turned a lot of people off from the show because it felt very slow and deliberate, and that was new for Star Wars fans. But if you get hooked by the 3rd episode, the show is phenomenal and has spectacular pacing for a Star Wars show that is usually all about being way too fast.